What if I told you that the wealthiest people on the planet are doing something fundamentally different with their money than you are right now? Not something flashy, not something you'd see on Instagram, but something so simple, so obvious, that it's actually hiding in plain sight. The top 1% in 2026 have cracked a code that the other 99% either doesn't understand or refuses to accept. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what that code is. But here's the thing. Knowing these habits and actually implementing them are two completely different things. So stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to understand why most people stay broke, while a select few build generational wealth. Let's jump in. First, let me set the stage. We're in July 2026, and the financial landscape is wildly different from 5 years ago. The S&P 500 is sitting at 747.41, up nearly 2% this month alone. Bitcoin is pushing $65,000, and the Fed is signaling they're holding rates steady despite inflation concerns. Interest rates on high-yield savings accounts and CDs are hovering around 4.20% APY. The stock market is volatile. Alphabet and Tesla just dropped on earnings, and everyone's nervous. But here's what's interesting. While 95% of people are freaking out about market volatility, the top 1% are doing something completely different. They're executing. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Habit number 1. The wealthy treat money like a tool, not a treasure. This is where most people get it wrong from day one. The average person looks at money as something to hoard, to keep safe, to accumulate in a savings account earning 4.20% APY and feel satisfied. The top 1% look at money as a tool, something that should be put to work immediately. They understand opportunity cost in their bones. When they see a dollar sitting idle, they don't see safety. They see a missed opportunity. Right now, with the market up 1.9% this month and long-term index fund returns historically averaging around 10% annually, holding cash feels like a guaranteed loss. The wealthy know this. They understand that cash loses purchasing power to inflation, and they act accordingly. So what does this actually look like in practice? If you have $10,000, the average person puts it in a savings account. The wealthy person is asking, where can this $10,000 work hardest for me? Is it in the stock market? Is it in a side business that could generate a 40% return? Is it in real estate? Is it in paying off high-interest debt, which is essentially a guaranteed return? They're ruthless about capital allocation. Every single dollar has a job. Every single dollar needs to earn its keep. And here's the kicker. They don't feel guilty about it. They don't agonize over risk. They understand that doing nothing is actually the riskiest thing you can do. Habit number 2. They obsess over income growth, not expense cutting. This is where the philosophy completely shifts. I want you to hear this clearly. The wealthy don't get rich by clipping coupons. They don't get wealthy by cutting their coffee budget down to $2 a day. They don't build generational wealth by finding the cheapest car insurance. Those tactics are for people playing a game where the ceiling is fixed. The top 1% understand something fundamental. The income side of the equation is unlimited, but the expense side is capped. You can only cut expenses so far before your life becomes miserable. But income is theoretically unlimited. So while the average person spends 3 months optimizing their monthly budget and saving $200 a month, the wealthy person spends those same 3 months building a side revenue stream that generates $2,000 a month. The math is not close. The energy is not close. The results are not even in the same universe. Now, what are people actually doing to grow income in 2026? Some are building digital products and courses. Some are investing in real estate and using platforms like Zillow and Redfin to find deals faster than ever before. Some are starting service businesses that scale with technology. Some are doubling down on their existing career and negotiating aggressively for raises and promotions. The point is, they're thinking about growing the pie, not shrinking their slice. That's the mindset. That's the habit, and it's non-negotiable if you want to reach the top 1%. Habit number 3. They use leverage and debt as a weapon. Now, this is going to trigger some people, so let me be clear about what I mean. The average person has been taught to fear debt. Debt is scary. Debt is dangerous. Stay away from debt. The wealthy person understands that debt is a tool. Used correctly, Leverage can multiply your returns. Used incorrectly, it can destroy you. The key difference is this: the wealthy borrow money to buy assets. The average person borrows money to buy liabilities. Someone in the top 1% might take out a mortgage at 6.5% interest to buy a rental property that generates 8% annual returns, plus principal paydown, plus appreciation. That's leverage working for you. That's a math game they can win. Meanwhile, the average person is taking out a car loan at 8% to buy a depreciating asset, or worse, paying credit card interest at 18% to buy consumer goods. That's leverage working against you. It's the exact same tool being used in completely opposite ways. The ruthlessness comes in when wealthy people make decisions about leverage that most people wouldn't have the stomach for. They'll buy a second property using a HELOC against their primary residence when the numbers make sense. They'll use business debt to scale operations. They'll leverage their knowledge and reputation to raise capital for ventures. They understand the mechanics of borrowed money at a cellular level, and they use it to accelerate their path to wealth. The wealthy in 2026 are especially strategic about leverage because rates have been volatile. They're locking in terms, they're understanding fixed versus variable rates, and they're positioning their debt for long-term gain. It's not emotional, it's mathematical. Habit number 4. They think in percentages, not dollar amounts. This habit separates the ambitious from the genuinely wealthy. Let me give you an example. Someone makes $50,000 a year. A 20% raise feels like $1 million. It's huge. They celebrate. It's a major win in their mind. Meanwhile, someone making $500,000 a year gets a 5% raise and thinks about firing their entire wealth manager because they're underperforming. The difference isn't arrogance. It's perspective. The wealthy think about percentage returns on capital. They think about percentage growth rates. They think about percentage increases in revenue, profit margins, and net worth. A wealthy investor looks at the current market, the S&P 500 at 747.41, the NASDAQ 100 at 705.35, and doesn't think about absolute dollar gains. They think about percentage returns. Is a 10% return this year good or bad? Compared to what? Compared to the opportunity cost. What else could I do with this capital? This thinking compounds over decades. A 10% annual return on $100,000 is $10,000 the first year. But compounded over 30 years with reinvestment, you're looking at over $1 million. The wealthy know this in their sleep. The average person never even thinks about it. They're obsessing over whether their monthly savings of $300 is enough, when they should be obsessing over how to get a 20% return on their existing capital. The psychology is completely different. The wealthy have trained their minds to think in systems and percentages. Everything becomes scalable when you think in percentages. Habit number 5. They build systems that make money while they sleep. This is the most important habit, and it's the one that actually creates true wealth. The average person trades time for money. They work a job, they get paid a salary, and when they stop working, the money stops coming. It's linear. It's capped by the number of hours in a day and the energy they have to give. The top 1% build systems, multiple systems, that generate revenue on autopilot. These systems don't care if they're sleeping, on vacation, or busy with their next venture. The money keeps flowing. What does this look like in 2026? It could be dividend-paying stocks and ETFs that generate passive income. It could be a rental property or a portfolio of properties generating monthly cash flow. It could be a digital product that's sold on autopilot through platforms like Gumroad or Teachable. It could be a content business with affiliate commissions and sponsorships. It could be a software business with recurring subscription revenue. It could be a master limited partnership or a REIT that generates quarterly distributions. The form changes, but the principle is identical. Build something once and let it generate revenue forever. The ruthlessness here is in the initial execution. You have to be willing to put in serious work up front to build these systems. Most people never do it because the timeline is longer than they're willing to wait. They want money today. The wealthy people are willing to sacrifice today for tomorrow. They're building their first business while still working their corporate job. They're analyzing rental properties while spending weekends on viewings. They're creating content late at night and early in the morning. They're doing the boring foundational work that most people refuse to do. And then, 5 years later, 10 years later, they have multiple revenue streams that barely require their attention. That's when the compounding effect becomes visible to everyone else. That's when people say, wow, they got lucky. No, they built systems. Now, let me address something that I think is really important here. Why don't more people adopt these habits? The answer is simple. They're psychologically uncomfortable. Treating money as a tool requires discipline. Obsessing over income growth instead of expense cutting requires constantly pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. Using leverage requires understanding complex financial mechanics and accepting risk. Thinking in percentages requires a mathematical mindset that doesn't come naturally to everyone. And building systems requires delayed gratification in a world that rewards instant results. These habits are not intuitive. They're not taught in schools. They're not culturally praised. In fact, they're often criticized. Someone who uses leverage is labeled reckless. Someone who obsesses over income is labeled materialistic. Someone who builds systems instead of enjoying their paycheck right now is labeled obsessed or unbalanced. The cultural messaging is strong, and it runs counter to wealth building. So the top 1% either ignore the messaging or they find communities of like-minded people who reinforce these habits instead. That's actually crucial. You cannot build wealth surrounded by people who think differently. Your peer group determines your financial destiny. Full stop. Look at your 5 closest friends. What's their average net worth? That's probably close to your net worth. That's not a coincidence. It's environmental programming. So here's what I want you to do right now. Pick one of these 5 habits. Just one. Don't try to implement all 5 at once. That's a guarantee of failure. Pick the one that resonates with you most, and that you can realistically start this week. If you're currently hoarding cash, start treating it like a tool. Move that money into a high-yield savings account at 4.20% APY, or better yet, into an index fund. If your income is stagnant, spend 15 hours this week researching how you could increase it by 20%. Is it a side hustle? Is it negotiating with your current employer? Is it learning a new skill? Get specific. If you're debt-averse, spend 2 hours understanding the difference between good debt and bad debt. Calculate the ROI on a leveraged asset. If you're still thinking in absolute dollars, convert your goals to percentage returns. Instead of saying, I want to save an extra $1,000, say I want to achieve a 15% return on my capital. If you haven't built a system yet, commit to launching something small in the next 90 days. A digital product, a rental property analysis, an affiliate site. Something. Take action. The gap between knowing and doing is where 99% of people fail. The top 1% close that gap relentlessly. So close it. If this video added value to you, I want you to subscribe to Money Mindset TV right now. We're dropping new wealth-building content every single week, and you're not going to want to miss it. Also, drop a comment below and tell me, which of these 5 habits are you committing to this week? I read every single comment, and I want to know what you're going to implement. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, please share this video with them. Help them close the gap between knowing and doing. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.